If you're in testing, you know the feeling. Your project's a mess of conflicting demands and nobody seems to be on the same page. Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig right into the ISTQB test management syllabus to show you how to turn that stakeholder chaos into your biggest strategic advantage. Let's get to it.
So, here's what we're covering. First, we'll talk about a problem I bet you've all faced. Then, we'll figure out who the key players on your project actually are and decode what they really want from you. From there, I'll give you a super powerful tool to manage everyone's expectations, and we'll wrap it all up with a simple plan to put this into practice right away.
All right, let's kick things off with a situation that is probably a little too familiar for many of us.
So, let's talk about that classic project nightmare. Does this sound about right? Your team is crushing it, working late, finding all these critical bugs. But the second a deadline gets shaky or a feature isn't quite right, all eyes turn to testing. The blame just lands right on your doorstep. So why does this keep happening over and over again? Here's the secret. This isn't a technical problem. It's a communication problem. The real issue isn't the number of bugs you're finding. It's the massive disconnect between what your team is doing every day and what your stakeholders think is happening. That gap, well, that's where projects go to die. So, to fix this communication breakdown, we've got to start by figuring out who we're even talking to. So let's meet your stakeholders. You know, the official ISTQB definition of a stakeholder is incredibly broad. You really have to think bigger than just your boss or the dev team. It is literally anyone, inside or outside the company, whose work is impacted by your testing or the results you're producing. And just look at this. Look how different their interests are. The project manager is just laser-focused on the schedule. A developer, they just need a clear bug report so they can fix something. Meanwhile, way up in senior management, they're worried about big-picture business risk, and the end user, well, they just want the thing to work. They're all in the same project, but it's like they're living in completely different worlds.
For your project leadership team, it is all about one thing: progress. They need those high-level updates to answer one very simple question. Are we going to deliver this thing on time and on budget? Your technical team, on the other hand, couldn't care less about a project dashboard. They live in the weeds, in the details. They need super precise, reproducible bug reports so they can get to the root of the problem and fix it fast.
And then you've got the business side. And the end users, they're all about value. Does this software actually do what it's supposed to do? Does it solve a real problem without being a total pain to use? Their whole world is functionality and user experience.
Okay, so we know who our stakeholders are, but to really manage them, we have to get this one thing straight. When they all say the word quality, they are almost certainly talking about completely different things. You bet you will. This is the absolute heart of the communication challenge. The word quality is so subjective, and everyone sees it through the filter of their own job and their own worries.
Now, what's so cool about this is how it reframes the role of a test manager. You're not just a manager, you're a translator. It's your job to take the technical reality of bug reports and test failures and translate it into the language that each of these different groups understands, whether that's the language of risk, requirements, or just plain old reliability.
So how in the world do you juggle all these competing priorities? Well, the ISTQB syllabus gives us a fantastic strategic tool for this exact problem. It's called the Power Interest Matrix.
This is the million-dollar question, right? You can't give everyone the same level of attention or the same report. If you try, you just create a ton of noise, confusion, and you'll burn yourself out. You absolutely need a way to prioritize where you spend your energy.
And that framework is built on two really simple ideas: power and interest. Power is just their ability to change the project. Think approving budgets or changing the scope. And interest is just how much the project's success or failure is going to affect them and their job.
Okay, let's start in that top right corner. High power, high interest. These are your promoters. Think the project sponsor, the main client, the product owner. These people can make or break your project, and they care deeply about how it turns out. Your strategy is simple: manage them closely. They need frequent, detailed communication. They're your most important allies. Now for high power, low interest. Picture a senior exec or a department head who's funding your project. They have the power to shut the whole thing down with one email, but they really are not interested in the day-to-day details. Your goal here is to keep them satisfied. Don't drown them in data. Give them short, high-level summaries that make them feel confident everything is under control. Down in the bottom right, we have low power, high interest. These are people like your end users, or maybe the customer support team. They care a ton about the project's outcome, and they're an absolute goldmine of useful feedback, but they don't control the budget. The strategy? Keep them informed. Regular updates on what's happening are all you need to keep them on your side.
And finally, we have the apathetics. These folks have very little power and very little interest in your project. So your strategy here is super simple. Monitor them. They need minimal effort from you, which frees up your time and energy to focus on those other three groups where you can have a much bigger impact.
Okay, so we've got the theory, we've got the tool, now let's put it all together into a simple, step-by-step plan you can use to really master your project.
It really is this straightforward. Step 1. Get a whiteboard and just list out every single person who has a stake in this project. Step 2. For each person, be honest about their level of power and interest. Step 3. Actually draw the matrix and plot them on it. Seeing it visually is a game changer. And finally, Step 4. Create a specific communication plan for each of the 4 quadrants.
And this is the real payoff. When you start managing stakeholders this way, you elevate testing. It stops being just some technical thing that happens at the end. It becomes a core strategic function. You're not just finding bugs anymore, you're managing risk, you're aligning expectations, and you are building confidence across the entire organization. That is how you stop projects from failing.
This really is the bottom line, isn't it? At the end of the day, your job as a test manager is to give every single stakeholder the exact information they need so they can feel confident in the product and the decisions being made around it.
So, I'll leave you with a little challenge. When you get back to your desk, think about your project. Who is that high-power, low-interest stakeholder? And then ask yourself, honestly, are you actually keeping them satisfied with the right kind of information? Or are you accidentally risking their support by sending them the wrong message? It's a really important question to answer. Thanks for joining me.